Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this lecture in week 4. We'll be discussing about extensible markup language (XML). Okay, so let's proceed with this. So, as part of this video, we'll be talking about XML basics. Okay, and then we will be seeing XML syntax rules, what makes it as a well-formed document. Okay, and then what are XML namespaces. Then we will discuss document type definitions, XML DTDs. Then we will discuss about what is XML schema, XML parsers, and of course, we'll also be seeing relevant demos, just like last week. Okay, so we will also have this video as 2 parts. Okay, in the part 1, we'll be discussing about some of the concepts, say for example, up to XML namespaces, and the remaining things we'll be discussing as part of video number 2. Let's proceed. Computers generally contain data in incompatible formats. Okay, say for example, each of the machine will have its own data. Its data will be formatted in somehow or other. They somehow need to exchange this information between these machines. Okay, so it was a very complex problem from the beginning itself. We needed some sort of robust, extensible, and very standard format for such a data. That's how XML actually came into picture. XML is actually designed to basically store and transport data. It is mostly self-descriptive and both human and machine readable. That is an interesting part of it. So humans can read this information. At the same time, machines can also automatically read them. So most information in XML is wrapped in tags, similar to HTML. Last week we have seen how HTML basically wraps all the things into the tags. XML also does the same thing. However, XML and HTML are designed for different purposes. We have to remember this one. Okay, so the design goals are really different. XML is primarily designed to carry the data, while HTML is primarily for displaying the data. Okay, so this is something which we should remember. Okay, one more very interesting thing is HTML tags are predefined. Say for example, HTML body, head, and everything are predefined. Say for example, paragraphs and all the things. Okay, so you can't change them. Okay, whereas XML tags are not. Okay, user actually defines them. Okay, so whatever the data document, say for example this XML document, it contains all these tags. It also contains the information which actually explains what these tags are actually. Okay, because they are, users are the authors for them for these XML documents, so they can use whatever the tags they want. Okay, so not like HTML where they are really fixed to use certain bunch of tags. XML is also extensible. So basically, even if there are certain extensions or modifications to the current data, okay, or say for example new tags are added to this data, the applications will not crash. Okay, so XML is designed in such a way. We will try to see this as we go in this lecture. Okay, XML is W3C recommendation from way back from 1998. Okay, so all these problems whatever were discussed were already relevant in 1990s. So and then XML was found a solution as a solution, and it was already made a W3C recommendation. Okay, way back in 1998. So here is an XML document. Okay, so we will try to see this as demo as well. But then if you really look into this information, so basically it is talking about some bookstore. Okay, we will try to see what all these tags and these attributes are and everything in the coming slides. But in general, if you look at this XML document, what it states is there is a bookstore, okay, which has several books, and each book has certain information, something like its title, author information, in which year it is published, and how much it actually costs, and then you have several books. Okay, and basically this XML document is representing that. Now this is the XML document which can actually be exchanged. Now let us try to look at each and every of these tags and what is the information here. Okay, and what it really represents in the coming slides. XML documents are actually formed as element trees. Okay, so everything is an element and you are actually forming these trees. Okay, starts with a root element, so all the documents will have a root element. Okay, followed by the chained elements. Okay, so for example, if you go and see this demo again, this example again, so you have this bookstore as the root element, and then you have all the other elements as its children. Okay, and then followed by these child elements. Okay, elements can have sub elements. Okay, so we will see all the things in the demo. Okay, and there are the relationship between these elements. Okay, say for example, there can be parent-child relationship among these elements. Okay, so one of the element can be the parent for the other one. Okay, elements which are at the same level are called siblings. Okay, and the XML documents should follow XML syntax rules. Okay, so what are these rules? So XML documents must have a root element. Okay, so this is something which we have to remember. So you need to have only one root element. Okay, I will try to demonstrate what will happen like if there are several root elements and such things. Okay, so if there is no root element in that sense, okay, in the demo. Okay, just in few slides. Okay, so XML documents must have a root element, and the first line which we have seen is this is called the XML prologue. Okay, so this question mark XML, this version 1.0, it actually shows like this is XML version 1.0, and it has this encoding, character encoding, which is UTF-8. So that means like this document, this XML document may contain some special characters. Okay, so all these books which we have seen are English books, so we have not seen them. But then like if there are any other language books, then you will see all these characters. So that's why like its encoding is UTF-8. Remember that this prologue, even though it is optional, if it is there, it should be the first line. Okay, so please remember this one. So this is very critical. Okay, in fact, actually this prologue definition is not part of the XML document. It is there to give additional information to the to say for example applications or parsers which actually read through this XML document. Okay, so that's about these sort of some of the basic rules. The other rules are, say for example, all the XML elements must have a closing tag. In HTML we have seen, so basically I am not explaining about what the tags are and everything. Okay, so you know that there is a start tag and there would be an end tag. In HTML we have seen, in XML also we need to have start tag and an end tag. Okay, and every element must have a closing tag. So in HTML, say for example, if we have this sort of line break, we were just putting BR, that's all, it works. Okay, but in XML, if there was a BR tag, it should be closed. Okay, so basically like you have to put this slash. Okay, so this greater than, of course, this actually shows like the tag is already ending, and this is an empty tag because there is no information within this tag. Say for example, like within this element, the start tag and end tag, within this one, the other Satish Rama is actually mentioned here. So that's how like this is an empty tag. XML tags are case sensitive. Okay, so both opening and closing tags should have the same case. Okay, so this is something which you should definitely remember. Okay, and XML elements must be nested properly. Okay, so this is also very critical. And one more thing, like XML attribute values must always be quoted. Okay, so when an XML document basically sticks to all these rules, all these syntax rules, it is called well-formed XML document. Okay, so basically, what is a well-formed XML document? Let us now try to see in a demo. So here is the demo. So basically, like I already have shown you this one as the XML example. So here is the XML, and this is the first line. Okay, so which is this prologue information, and then like you can actually open this is opened in Notepad plus. Okay, and you can also open the document in the browser. Most of the browsers will also verify the correctness of XML. Say for example, currently this is a well-formed XML document. Now see the thing. I will show you some of the things where like XML will very easily fail. So you may think like, okay, so this is a very prologue is the don't have to do the first line. Okay, so just by putting an empty line, what will happen? Let's see what will happen. The moment we put this one, this is not a valid XML document anymore. So as I mentioned in the slides, if prologue, okay, so it don't have to be there. If it exists, it should be the first line. We have to remember that one. See? Just by removing that one, it works perfect. Okay, so you should be very careful. XML is a lot more strict in that nature. HTML was not so. Okay, so if you basically cultivate those habits from HTML, and then like if you start composing these XML documents in the same way, you will end up with a lot of errors. Okay, so now let us try to see in this document, like this bookstore is the root element, in which like there are several books. Okay, and there are for each and every book, like there are sub elements, like it has its title, author, year, price, etc. Now, basically, like since it should be having as a single root node. Say, for example, now let us make it like there is no root node. Okay, so I will put another bookstore. Okay, so basically, like what I'm saying is like there are two bookstores which actually put all the information into a single document without having a root element. Okay, the moment we save this, say junk after the document element. Okay, so that means like it is definitely throwing some error. Okay, that there is no root element. Okay, so you have to understand from that one. So let's remove this, and then like let's get it back, so everything works fine. Now say for example, like in HTML you can forget about some of the end tags or so. Basically the formatting will not give you that much error, the browser will automatically correct it. Okay, but whereas with XML it is very strict. Think about the situation, I have forgotten to end this sort of title tag. Okay, so what happens? Error again. So basically what it is saying is like mismatched tag. So basically like there is no slash title. Okay, it is expecting that. Okay, so definitely it is missing that one. Okay, so if you don't follow this one, if it is not well formed document, it's an error actually. So now the same way, like say for example, like you also need to have a proper XML hierarchy. Okay, so basically like the nesting should be proper. Now think about the situation like title, you should have closed the tag, and before that one you started the other tag, and now you are closing this sort of title tag. HTML sometimes it will compile, sometimes it may not. XML will definitely compile. Okay, remember this one. So this is not well formed document anymore. Okay, so these are some of the critical things like which we need to remember. So that's why like sticking to this sort of well-formedness of XML documents is very critical. Okay. Similarly, say for example, like if you have forgotten quotes for this sort of attribute. So these are called attributes. Of course, we have seen from the HTML. Okay, let's save this one, and again it will be an error. Okay, you see programming. So there are no quotes. It's not well-formed document. Okay, so XML is what I am trying to say with this demo is XML is very strict in its formatting rules. Okay, so its syntax rules, so you have to follow them very strictly. Okay, so now you got it. So we have seen like what will happen if prologue is not the first line. We have seen like if what if there are no root elements, what if the and tags are missing, or like if say for example like the hierarchy is not maintained properly, or attributes don't have these sort of quotes, semicolon, okay, double quotes, all of them will throw errors for you. Okay, now that we know that what is a well-formed document, let's proceed with it with the next thing. So we have seen the basic XML syntax rules. There are also some other rules. Okay, so basically like in HTML we have seen like white spaces, it will basically lose. Okay, if there are 3 or 4 white spaces, so that information is lost, but XML actually preserves these sort of white spaces. So if you maintain some 2 or 3 spaces between Satish Srirama, so that space will be maintained. So there are other white space characters as well in XML. Say for example, this carriage return or line feed or like these tabs are also maintained. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the entity references for them. But then like there are other entity references. Say for example, like now that ampersand is a problem in HTML as well, it is a problem here as well. So you have to have an entity reference like ampersand amp semicolon. Okay, similarly like less than, say for example within the text, like if the less than appears, okay, so the parser will basically get confused. Okay, so again like you need this sort of entity reference ampersand lt semicolon rather than ampersand gt semicolon, and also like for a single quote, okay, apostrophe, so basically like you need ampersand apos. Okay, and if it is double quote, ampersand quote QUOT semicolon. Okay, so you need to have this sort of entity references. The other important information related to XML is like, say for example, XML comments. Again, you have to have this sort of less than exclamation 2 hyphens, and everything from there till this 2 hyphens and greater than symbol, everything is a comment there, just like the HTML. Okay, so now in the examples what I have shown is like there are tags, so there are elements. Okay, so what these things like we'll try to see. Okay, so tags and elements. Okay, and then like we have seen certain text information in the middle. Say for example, if there is other, so we have given another name. That other name is a text. Okay, but then like there are also these sort of character data. Okay, so the character data section is called C data section. If you put any information in this sort of C data section, okay, the entire content it is interpreted as a character data. Okay, so it can even contain this sort of any markup data. Say for example, you can define like so it always starts with this less than exclamation. Okay, so curly braces. Okay, square brackets. Okay, left C data and square brackets left again. Okay, and then like you can throw in whatever sort of message. Say for example, here there is an XML tag sort of information, but it will not be passed since it is a C data, so it will be taken by default. So here you can even throw in these sort of entity references as well. Say for example, see here in fact actually this less than and greater than, you don't even have to put the entity references for them. So whatever is there in the C data, it will not be passed and it will be directly taken as that particular text. So that is why C data is also very critical in XML. So now let us try to formalize all the things what we have seen there. Okay, we have seen first thing is like we have seen the XML elements. XML element is everything between the start tag and the end tag. Okay, so we already have seen these things, including the tags. Okay, say for example, like if there is an other tag, other Satish Rama and end of other tag. So an element is including all these three things together. Okay, so an element can contain text. Okay, we have seen the way like Satish Rama is a text, and it can have attributes as well. Okay, so in this example, like we have seen like those books have categories and those things. Okay, and say for example, like there can also be other elements. Okay, so within that one. Okay, and if there is an element, okay, which has nothing, it is called as an empty element. Okay, it can also be represented as we have seen like element and then like you end up with this sort of slash. Okay, so and then like rather than empty elements can have attributes. Okay, so okay, that's about XML elements. Okay, there are several naming rules for these sort of XML elements. They must start with a letter or underscore. So all the XML elements should start with a letter or underscore. Okay, and they cannot start with XML letters together. So you cannot start any XML tag with XML. Okay, so that will be a problem. Okay, so these XML elements, I mean these tags can contain like letters, digits, hyphens, or underscores, and even periods. Okay, they can contain. Okay, but they cannot contain spaces. Okay, so you cannot have like say for example element space name, you cannot have that one. Okay, so instead you have to put like underscore. Okay, say for example if you want to put like first name, first underscore name. Okay, you cannot put like first space name. So XML elements are also extensible. So that means like the elements can be extended to contain more information. Okay, say for example, the book which we have seen. Okay, so let me show that example again for you to remember, because like I will be basing a lot of this discussion on that XML tag, XML document. Okay, so let me try to show it again just for your remembrance. Okay, so the basic information is like each bookstore has books, and books have this sort of category. Okay, so the category information can be like, say for example, they are based on web or like they are programming books. Okay, and so each book has a title. Okay, so you're learning in XML, learning Python. Okay, in this case like it is Java servlet programming, something like that. And then like say for example we want to have what is the language of the book. Say for example we have an attribute language. So most of here like we have English, but say for example if there is a French book, you will have FR. Okay, something like that. And that book also has a author and which published year and price. Now what I am trying to say is, tomorrow like if you want to add description to this one element, okay, so you have added something more to the element, what will happen? Okay, think about it. If it is some other programming, say for example it will say like okay, so it will not work anymore. okay, because like you have changed the input, okay. But XML is extensible in that sense, okay. Elements can be added to contain more information. So if you have added this description, it will not fail. Applications will not crash, okay. So that's then only like it will be a proper XML based application. So you will be reading the tags. If there is a new tag, okay, so you can have the next version of the application which will also read this description information. But the thing is, like the basic application should not crash by seeing this new tag there. In fact, actually, if you had a loop about which is actually how to display all these sort of elements, so with this addition of new element, okay, so this description element into the current information will also display that information, okay. Uh, we should still be able to extract the current information as well as like the way like I have given. You can also read in additional information as well. Okay, that's about XML elements. Then XML attributes. XML elements can have attributes. As I have shown you, the language is English there, or like say for example, category also we have seen for each and every book. Okay, so well, the category which we have seen are like web or like say for example the programming books. So these are all the attributes. Attributes are actually good for metadata information. Say for example, in HTML we have seen like all the IDs we're mentioning as attributes, isn't it? So for example, any HTML tag, like if we wanted to add an ID, we will give ID is equal to something, some attribute value, and that attribute value we were using in JavaScript or something, or CSS. Okay, we have already seen. But remember this one: in XML, to the extent possible, avoid attributes. Okay, attributes are very good for metadata information, but then like avoid attributes to the extent possible for other purposes. Okay, instead of attributes, use elements. Okay, the good thing with elements is attributes cannot contain multiple values, but elements can contain multiple values. Say for example, the same element if you repeat multiple times, okay, say for example, if there are multiple authors for that book, you could have put like author Satish Sri Raman, author the second one, author the third one. Okay, there is no problem. Okay, so you can add more values. Okay, so by putting an element tag there, if I would have put an attribute there, I cannot add more names. Okay, so that's a problem. And the attributes cannot contain tree structure. So since every element, the sub element can itself be an element, so the element can have tree structure within. Okay, so you can maintain that one. And attributes are not easily expandable. That's also one of the big problems there. Okay, so that's why prefer elements, okay, in Excel. Then there is another very interesting concept in XML is these XML namespaces. Say for example, like you have taken two different XML documents, you want to join them together. Then definitely there will be some naming conflicts, isn't it? Okay. Think about the situation. Say for example, here are two documents. One of the other is actually representing the table as a HTML table. So we have seen the tables during the last week. Okay. So here is the table which has a table record, table header. Okay, we have seen this table during the last lecture. So this is a HTML table. Whereas like another guy actually have represented this table as a physical table. So this is a wooden table which has this sort much of width and this much of length. Okay, great, and it should also have a weight, but he has not represented that one. Probably that is an element like which we can add into that one. Okay, which he has not represented as of now. But the thing is like these two tables are different actually. If you join these two tables, there will be a naming conflict, isn't it? How to resolve these things? Name conflicts in XML can be avoided by using prefixes. Okay, this is where like XML namespaces basically comes into picture. So basically, see this example. There is a root element. Within that one, there are two table elements. Okay, and now I am giving a prefix h here, h colon table, and then like whenever I am using this sort of prefix, okay, so which is h colon, so I have to define a namespace for that prefix. So XMLNS colon h, I will give a proper URI reference for that one. Okay, in this case w3.org HTML. So this is then actually known like a HTML table. So then of course like all the other sub elements also like should start with this prefix h, tr, hth, okay, h colon th. So everywhere it basically comes like this. Okay, so all of them will have this h colon. Okay. So namespace is defined for an element is also associated for all its child elements, okay, with the same prefix. So basically for all of them, like the namespace is still this one, still the same one, okay. Now my furniture table, I will basically start with this sort of F, okay, F colon table. And then like now I will have a different namespace from a different URI. Okay, so here it is a furniture based namespace. Okay, so here F colon material now, so ends with this F colon material, width the same. Okay, so the length, everything stays the same. Instead of putting this sort of namespaces everywhere, you could have saved all these namespaces in the root itself. Say, for example, within this root, if you basically say like XML ns colon h is this one, XML ns colon f is this one, you could have put in the root. Then you can still retain all the information. So the namespaces are maintained for these elements. Okay, that's about XML. Here are the references. So as I have been putting all these sort of references, you can check through them. Okay. Most of the material I have taken from this XML tutorial from W3 schools. Of course, like there is a lot of other material which I have extracted from different places. We have seen the demo. Thank you very much for your attention.